Welcome to the New Earth channel with Benj and Gab. Today we are going to be shedding some great insight around planetary alignments. At the moment we are currently going through a Mercury Retrograde, so we thought why not do a video to help anyone who might be struggling during a retrograde or perhaps could be looking for information about how to get the benefits of a retrograde. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell for more notifications around different topics that we're going to be sharing around mind, body and soul. So if you're interested, do like and subscribe this video. Otherwise, stay tuned for more information around the Mercury Retrograde. So what exactly is a Mercury Retrograde?
So if you think of a retrograde, it means that it's a backward motion. We know physically that this isn't possible. However, in the night sky, a retrograde just symbolises the vantage point of what we're looking, where the planet is and the Earth and how it's moving around the sun. So if we think of a retrograde period, anyone that resonates with astrology or believes in astrology, it holds great significance.
So you've probably seen all the memes out there about Mercury retrograde and why it is so intense, but there is actually a specific reason why Mercury particularly is such a big retrograde, right?
Yeah, so all the planets have a meaning to it. So Mercury means communication and commerce. Yeah. So, it affects communication in all different areas, writing letters, sending emails. It affects anything from going A to B, so the transportation system, they're just some things.
Yeah, and also technologies. This is where we usually experience difficulties in our phones, in our connection on social media, glitches in the internet.
Yes, absolutely.
As well. So this particular retrograde has just recently started, hasn't it?
Yeah, so it started on the 13th and it will end on the 3rd. Now, with any retrograde, there's a post-shadow period and a pre-shadow period, which can last up to about a week. So traditionally, a retrograde in Mercury will last 3 weeks, but with the shadow periods, it's more like 5 or 6. Yeah.
And what exactly, for those who don't know what a shadow period is, what exactly is a shadow period?
So it's just a shift in energy. So, the week before, you'll start to feel the subtle effects of Mercury coming into that week before it affects us.
Yeah. Like you'd be like, why am I really tired all of a sudden?
Yes.
And then bam, you just can't get out of bed in the morning. So Benj, what exactly does Mercury symbolize in a retrograde?
So traditionally in a retrograde period, it's giving us a window to basically have a look and go inward. It's, especially with Mercury, it's about taking that step back and looking at what needs to be healed in your life, what needs polishing, so we then can move forward from it.
And you usually notice that the body is responding to the energy that is responding to the retrograde, and it's going to try to encourage you to slow down so you can take that time to work more within. It's almost like the retrograde is kind of like a big spotlight that's going to shine on all the areas in your life that you need to focus on, that you need to release, that you need to work through so that you can move forward in ascension, really.
Yes. And I think any retrograde, particularly Mercury, gets a bad rap, but there is certainly positives to it. Yeah.
Any retrograde in itself is a great opportunity for you to get to where you need to be a whole lot quicker. That's why it's so intense, but it does definitely get a bad rap just because of the negative effects that can happen if you're not aware of how to prepare for one or what it is that you need to clear from.
Exactly, and it's really about being ready for it and preparing yourself for it.
Yeah. It's a very intense way, and it can be quite harsh sometimes because some of the lessons that come up can be quite confronting, but it's a really beautiful way, I think, of getting really, really well in your ascension journey, in your spiritual journey, to feel a whole lot better for your mind, body and spirit. But you do have to confront those issues, and retrogrades really get you to confront it head on with very limited distractions because, as I said before, it's going to encourage you to physically slow down. You're not going to be as motivated to go and hang out with friends. You're not going to be as motivated to do the things that usually distract us in life from our issues. It's going to create glitches in social media. It's going to create issues with internet and technologies. So it's quite powerful in itself when it comes to a Mercury retrograde.
Yeah. So Gab, what's some other things that we need to, say, avoid in a Mercury retrograde?
Well, we've all seen the memes, and if you haven't, go check them out because they're usually pretty accurate. When it comes to a Mercury retrograde, there are some, I won't say do's and don'ts, but more things I would encourage you to not do during a retrograde. One of the biggest ones is to avoid signing contracts. When it comes to Mercury retrogrades, we feel very impulsive, we feel the energy is very intense, and it can lead us towards making decisions that are more so in the moment and that might not benefit us in the future once the retrograde has ended. So avoiding signing contracts is usually a really big one.
Mm-hmm. Another one is, sending emails, letters, things like that. Another good one is a lot of people during this time are actually looking for work and getting their CVs up to date. I'd make sure that they're very clear.
Yes.
Crossing your T's, dotting your I's, things like that.
Yeah, because you mentioned about communication. So whenever you're communicating with other people, whether it's through emails or through verbal conversation, being very clear and direct with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because the reaction to things can definitely be shifted. So our reaction, we usually might not be as sensitive to particular topics that become very sensitive now. And this is where people can feel very emotional, they can feel very moody, they can feel very hypersensitive.
Anxious?
Yes, anxious for sure actually. It's usually a really big one.
Yeah. Difficulty in making decisions, Yeah.
Which is why if you are feeling something during the retrograde, if you're feeling creative, if you want to change something in your life, if you're questioning your career, perhaps write it down in a journal, plan it, really go within, really think about it before you make any erratic decisions. Retrogrades don't really last that long. It's only for a few weeks, so it's a really good chance for you to perhaps do the inside work rather than jumping the gun, which is why they say to avoid loans, to avoid spending excessive amounts of money.
Exactly.
Being really careful with your finances. When it comes to Mercury retrogrades, this one is very important as well. To be cautious of overindulging, whether that's in food, whether that's in toxic relationships, alcohol, drugs, to be very aware of what you're overindulging, because you don't want to place yourself in a position of overindulging in low vibrational things.
Exactly. So. Yeah, and if we're kind of in our heads, that's also going to affect our, gut health. That can be a big thing if we're overindulging, eating the wrong type of foods. Because, in a retrograde, they do talk about, being as healthy as possible, eating the right foods, getting enough sleep, because it can really affect our sleep patterns. I know, just talking with clients this week, a lot of people are having nightmares. A lot of people are having trouble sleeping.
Restless sleep.
Very restless,
When it comes to retrogrades, I can speak on experience for myself, is I always struggle to go to bed at the right times. I'm usually up I could easily stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm never tired, except I struggle to get out of bed the next morning. It's like my body just wants to sleep.
Yeah, I've struggled the last couple of days getting out of bed too.
Yeah.
I generally even get up quite early. But
like the routine, and then also breaking sleep. I usually wake up 3 or 4 times a night sometimes. Sleep is usually something that comes up a lot. So being aware of your sleep patterns.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that usually people are very familiar with, a very common thing when it comes to Mercury retrogrades, is the exes will try and come back into the picture.
Yeah. Ex-partners, ex-karmic connections.
Karmic connections. By the way, speaking of karmic connections, we've just done a video all talking about spiritual relationships, and we do mention about karmic relationships. So if you want to know more, do check that video out. But karmic relationships are very common that come up in Mercury retrogrades, because it's usually the universe being like, you haven't cleared it yet. You haven't done it yet.
Are you really finished with this person? Are you really
learned the
lessons? Are you really over it?
Yes.
But
so that's really important to clear.
Yeah, but a positive note with these ex-partners coming in, it's also a bit of a window of opportunity to actually smooth things over.
Yeah. close
the door, but in a positive way. You know, you might be carrying something that you've been carrying with for a long time, and it's about releasing that, you know. So it's not always a negative thing when these karmic connections, exes, come back into our lives during these periods.
Yes, well, actually I have an experience that the Mercury Retrograde that happened at the start of the year, I was just living life, doing my thing, and then lo and behold, I had someone that I dated quite a while back just pop into the picture. But what's interesting with this individual is the way it left off, it was very much just so many things left unanswered. And he came back into the picture and popped into my DMs, and we ended up having a really good chat about things. We never caught up or anything like that, because I knew that was not what it was meant to be. And it was an opportunity for me to really close the door and be like, not only to him, like, let's just stay friends, it's not going to ever progress, but also for myself being like, okay, finally you were able to speak to this person and knowing that you're not going to go back there. So like you said before, it's a really good way to kind of heal those wounds and cut those cords. Yeah,
a similar experience happened to me many years ago, and you know, it was something that I was carrying from a past relationship that I actually felt quite guilty about. You know, it was early on in my spiritual awakening, and this ex-partner actually come back in a Mercury retrograde, and the universe opened a window for me to actually come clean with a few things, apologise, and I can tell you it was just a great thing to release that, you know, the weight was off my shoulders basically.
And I usually find
so
that
a very positive thing.
The universe, when you're in a retrograde, the universe, what usually is like a subtle sign, the numbers occasionally come up, you know, very subtle synchronicities. The synchronicities are so intense during retrograde.
Yes.
They're in your face, which is why it's really easy to pay attention, because they're like screaming in your face. On the reverse though, they just say to be wary, keyword, if you are an ex, be careful of who you're messaging. You know,
exactly. If you get that urge to message someone from your past, don't do it. You know, because it's
think about
the motivation behind it.
Why are you doing it?
Is it a healthy thing? You know, is it coming from the ego?
Yeah. Are you just feeling lonely?
Yeah, exactly.
What is it that you need to heal within yourself? What's the intention behind it? That's definitely a big one. So as we mentioned before, when we go through a retrograde, our body will respond to the energy that's around us right now. So you're going to be feeling very tired. You might feel really drained. It's during retrogrades, weird experience, but it always happens. After sessions, at the end of the day, sometimes I'll literally lay on the floor of my healing room for like 2 hours straight. I just can't get up. As we mentioned before, it can be hard to get out of beds in the morning. So during a retrograde, we just encourage people to listen to your body. If your body is encouraging you, hey, I just need an extra hour of sleep, or I might need to take a nap today, or I just kind of want to have the weekend to myself, you want to slow it down, you want to listen to your body. If you push yourself too much during a retrograde physically, you're going to get really exhausted, you're going to be more drained, which means that your energy is going to be off, the vibration is going to be low, you're going to overindulge, you're going to make some bad choices, and you're not going to be experiencing the benefits of a retrograde. So you want to make sure that you're physically healthy, like you said before, and not pushing yourself to the limit, because this is where we can experience an intensity in headaches, we can experience intensity in sore throats, ears will be ringing, your body will give you signs of, hey, we need to stop, we need to slow down.
Exactly. I think one thing that doing the research, which was kind of stuck out with me, was self-care, you know, because, you know, if we're going against the retrograde and we're not getting enough sleep, we're not eating, you know, healthily, it's going to affect you know, us physically. So you know, it's about taking that step back. You know, even your skin can be affected during a retrograde. It's about, you know, taking that step back and looking at ways you can, you know, possibly pamper yourself, you know, change your routine around.
Yes. Retrogrades are like a spiritual hibernation. If you're going out and you're trying to push against the energy, you're going to get a lot of resistance, and that's when not only are you spiritually going to be affected, but mentally and physically. So self-care in itself is so important, especially during a retrograde. So with the Mercury retrograde, it's not all doom and gloom. Actually, there are so many benefits to a Mercury retrograde to get excited for. And there are a lot of pros to Mercury retrograde.
Exactly. Yeah. So one thing is making peace with the past. All right. So we've talked about, you know, those exes, karmic connections.
Yeah.
It's, you know, giving us opportunity to move forward from that.
Closure.
Yeah. Another thing that was highlighted to me was your memory. So during these periods, your memory can actually be pretty on point. You know.
That's good.
The other thing is finding lost things, and I will speak for myself because today I found something that I had thought I lost 6 months ago. So I actually found it, and I was really happy with it. Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, things can just show up out of nowhere.
So Mercury retrogrades are incredibly healing. They can really, like I said, really help with closure and closing doors from the past and helping you kind of elevate your energy and raise that vibration. It's really, really important that you take this time to heal yourself and
take that inward journey.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's only 3 weeks of your life, you know.
And you can do so much in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it will go so quickly.
Yeah, and the universe will show you what needs to be healed. Yeah. Another thing is something that you've been working on prior and you've kind of put it aside. Bring it back out and look at it with a fresh pair of eyes. Yeah, retrogrades are really good for reinventing things. So, Gab, there's ways to prepare before Mercury retrograde.
Absolutely, yes. If you can prepare for retrograde, the experience is going to be so much more different. You're not going to be feeling in this low vibration, just kind of getting through the day. You can really take advantage of the retrograde and use it for your benefit. So as we mentioned before, retrograde, the energy is so intense, you can use that to enhance your healing and get it done so much quicker. So prior to retrograde, there's some really cool things you could do regarding self-healing. So before retrograde, even before the shadow period, doing simple things such as self-healing, it's a perfect time to do a Reiki session. If you're ever thinking about doing a Reiki session, do it before a retrograde. Come and see us for a Reiki session before your retrograde. Clear all that dense energy so you can drive in to the retrograde really nice and fresh, really clear-minded, and you can address the issues without having dense energy on top that makes it really hard to distinguish what it is you need to work on. So doing things like journaling, assessing your shadow selves and your ego selves, perhaps doing some ego deaths is really, really important to bring it all into your awareness, and perhaps doing a nice guided meditation around releasing.
Yeah. Meditation really is important.
Cutting cords and things like that.
Yes.
And making sure that your energy is nice and clear, and perhaps even doing detoxes, physically detoxes. Any kind of detox in the lower chakras is perfect during a retrograde. And doing cleanses and kind of preparing your body for it as well.
Yeah.
And one thing I like to do before a retrograde is I usually try and clear my social calendar, or try and make my next few weeks relatively flexible where I can have days off just to myself, because you are going to want to isolate, you are going to want to have time to yourself, and it's really important that you have that escape route in case you are like, oh my gosh, I have this on the weekend, I have to do this and that. You can have those days to yourself. Giving yourself some extra time off is really, really important. Also, increasing water intake. Drink more water than usual before a retrograde. It's going to help flush out dense energies in the body as well. It really does come down to making sure that your energy is really, really aligned as best as you can, and making sure that you have a really good awareness of your shadow selves and your ego, so that when you go through the retrograde, you're not having to experience the intensity of it all, physically, mentally, and spiritually. You're kind of like, okay, I understand why this is coming up now. You like go in your journal, be like, I need to do an ego death. Okay. And if an X comes up, you can distinguish a little bit more as to why they're coming up. What is that purpose serving? So overall, when it comes to preparing for a retrograde, you don't have to go crazy or anything like that, but just allowing yourself that little bit of extra time to prepare your body, to do some inner work, some inner healing, and making sure that you are very well aware as best you can of any kind of ego or shadow selves that are trying to present themselves. Anything that you could kind of feel within yourself that needs to be worked on, journaling is amazing during this period. Writing down your thoughts and having that good communication within yourself, and doing affirmation work as to what it is that you want to get out of the retrograde. You can do manifestations around this as well.
Yeah, another thing is too, giving yourself time to prepare to get to places, because you know, it does affect modes of transport and things like that.
Yeah, that's a good one as well.
So give yourself plenty of time when, you know, you're scheduling meetings, you know, coffee dates, anything like that, you know.
Punctuality needs to be on point.
Yes, exactly.
Is what we're trying to say. So this isn't the Mercury retrograde, this actually happened in the Mars retrograde. Usually when it comes to retrogrades, I'm just kind of in there and being like, oh shit, it's a retrograde, that's why I'm feeling this way. But when it came to the Mars retrograde, my friend told me well in advance, hey girl, there's a Mars retrograde, get ready for it. And what happened was, prior, I did all this work within myself. I did a lot of self-healing, a lot of crystal grids, a lot of manifestations. I did journaling. I took it to the extreme. Like, I was really like, I am going to survive this one. And what I found was I did a lot of clearing. It was very intense. It was very, very intense. I did a lot of clearing prior, about 2 weeks prior. And then towards the retrograde, I changed up my diet. I gave myself a really good detox. And I really slowed things down in my life, and I put myself in a financial, like, what's the word I'm thinking of?
Hole?
Yes, so a financial hold. And I basically said, I'm not going to spend anything that, like, all the things that I want to purchase, I'm not going to do it until this date. And I noticed people around me that aren't aware of the retrograde, relationships starting to falling apart. I started noticing people having issues physically.
That's another thing, actually. Fighting with your partner is a common thing in a retrograde as well. You know, and it's because it's about communication. So, you know, make sure that you're communicating effectively with your partner.
Yeah. And I had so much energy. I was waking up super early. I had so much energy in the day. I was really happy, and I felt very, very good in myself. Had so much clarity. This Mercury retrograde didn't prepare, not at all. I'm very much in the retrograde, folks. Very in there. We'll talk about that later.
You know, we've got Mars to throw in a spanner as well. So, but that's another video.
That's another video. So
Mars has its own, you know, meanings and things.
But when you prepare for a retrograde, you can take advantage of the intensity and energy for your benefits. And I definitely experienced the difference when you prepare.
You will feel that energy.
Oh yeah, you will. You can't really change. You can't really avoid it. It's going to hit you one way or another.
Particularly if you're empathic and aware of it, you know.
Yes.
Some people, I think, don't even know that they're, you know.
No. Well, leading into this retrograde, into the Mercury retrograde, I was experiencing all these weird things. I was experiencing random throat issues, massive headaches. I was getting pains in particular areas of my body. And I started feeling weird emotions and about people I haven't thought about for ages, circumstances that happened years ago. And I'm like, huh? Oh, retrograde. Okay, makes sense. But it's funny how you get these little hints leading up to it. And if you don't jump on it straight away, it's just going to intensify, because the universe is just like, we're going to make you see it one way or another, girl. We're going to make you see it. So it's almost like if you can pick up on it really quickly and you can prepare for it and that's why meditation is so important, because if you can really clear your mind and come from a place of clarity, you can see the signs a lot clearer, where you're not going to be in a situation where you're in a retrograde and you're only able to respond to the symptoms of the energy and not be able to identify where it's coming from. You can clear it so much easier. So
I think during the Mercury retrograde too, it's important to keep grounded, you know, not just, you know, meditation. I think it's a staple with anything spiritual, you know, but it's, you know, doing your yoga, exercising physically,
physical stuff,
you know, drinking lots of water, being healthy, you know, walks in nature, they're all good things. But grounding, I think, is very, very good.
Very important, because otherwise you're going to get up here in your head and you're going to float around in the astral, and it's going to be really hard for you to be present. And you need the more grounded you are, the easier it is for you to do self-healing. So after a retrograde, there are some great ways that you can kind of settle your energy and collect yourself rather than just kind of get out of retrograde and continue with life. Some really simple things you could do is, again, doing another little healing, whether that's coming and seeing people like Benj and I for Reiki sessions, just to help realign everything and kind of restart your energy. You can also do this through meditation work as well, but it's really good to kind of open the windows, clear it all out and start again. So this is a really good time to reset yourself. As we mentioned before as well, during retrograde, the perfect time to really hibernate, maybe perhaps go inward. Post retrograde is an ideal time for you to put it into action. So I like to say during a retrograde is like when your feminine essence can really take hold and allow you to work on yourself. Post retrograde is great for the masculine.
Masculine's doing, so it's putting everything, all the hard work that you've planned, or putting everything into motion, and if we go back to one of our other previous videos, about manifesting stuff, it's about having that action behind it.
Especially when you're in a retrograde and working on your feminine energy, which is all about receptive to energies, working with your intuition.
So some other things that we can actually do in a post Mercury retrograde is, we've done all this hard work, we've done all this introspection, but it's about, channeling, your creative aspects and putting them into practice. During these times, it's, people find solutions to things, they change their careers.
They change their lifestyle.
So it's about putting these changes into practice so you can move forward.
Exactly right. So it's a really great time to work on your feminine and masculine, because obviously with your feminine energy going a little bit more within and saving all of that masculine energy for post Mercury retrograde.
So feminine's inward, your inward stuff, your higher chakras. Masculine's more putting it into the physical, the motion behind it and actually doing it.
Exactly right. Which is why we say to perhaps be cautious of what you're spending, what you're signing, and what you're saying to people and doing. Save that for after the Mercury retrograde. When energies have really settled down, you can really collect your energy again, rather than really reacting to the intensity of this Mercury retrograde.
Don't make any rash decisions, big decisions. Just leave it till afterwards.
Slow it down. So
or if you're going to, make sure you do a lot of research and
maybe sleep on it. And this is, like you said before, about the whole communication. It's not just communication with others, but also communication with yourself, which is why during this stage, with Mercury retrogrades, developing that self-communication with your feminine energy and allowing yourself to develop more awareness around what it is you're feeling, thinking.
So that's really going to lead us into our next video, Gab, isn't it? So, we're going to be talking about the masculine, the feminine energies, and, how we can stay in alignment.
Absolutely, because it's so important that we are being aware of our masculine and feminine essence.
It needs to be in balance. Like our chakras, our Ida Pingali needs to be in balance as well.
Absolutely. So we're very excited to share that one with you guys. If you find value in this video, as always, do like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more notifications. We are doing weekly videos around the mind, body, and soul, as we mentioned before. Next week's video is all about masculine versus feminine energy, so stay tuned. But we are sending you so much love and light, guys.
Sending you love and light.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.